Welcome to the first part of Harry Potter map making explanations. Today in this first episode we are going to cover the Alohomora spell that I showed in the first normal map making part, and yeah, so this consists out of 3 parts. We have the wand using detection thing here. No, not using it, detects if somebody holds a wand, and then we have this part here, which checks if somebody uses his wand, and that is connected to all these command block rows, and yeah, the first one is Alohomora. And there's also a 4th part, and that is this book, with which I select a spell. We are going to start with the first part, which is pretty small. It only has 6 command blocks, but it is also a little bit hard to understand. So the first command block here resets the wand hold scoreboard, which will be mentioned later. The second command block on top of it, which is executed basically at the same time, sets the hold wand score to 1 if somebody holds a item named wand. We couldn't set a item ID because we have tons of different wands, so it could have worked, but we didn't think it was necessary. So this is wand hold and this is hold wand. It's maybe a little bit irritating. So this one checks if somebody has hold wand from here, and if that is true, a random player gets wand hold set to 1. This is actually not really needed for the map, but because it's going to be single player, but at the moment it's useful if it's kinda multiplayer compatible, because we are on a server right now. The command block on top of this sets block uses a set block command, which makes this comparator go away, and this command block sets hold wand to 0. So a random player holding a wand now has a wand hold score of 1, a random player, and this just replaces the comparator. So every time the thing activates, a random player that holds a wand gets a wand hold score of 1. And that was this part of the contraption. Now on to the second part. The second part is maybe a little bit easier to understand, but some parts of this second part are actually back here, but it should be pretty easy to understand. So there are 2 ways to cast a spell, like I already mentioned in the Alohomora video. One would be right clicking and one would be left clicking. First, you need to understand how I actually detect the right and left clicking, and that works with a villager. The whole mechanic works using this villager, which is stored here if he's not in use, but if I select my wand, he gets teleported to me, and in front of me if I look into a direction, or into me if I look up or down, so that I can always hit him with left and right click. The exact villager positioning and how he's always teleported to me, and how I detected where exactly he should be, will be covered in another episode. And yeah, now we can take a look at this mechanic. The right-click detecting is actually pretty easy. I just have the scoreboard, which detects if I right-click this villager, and it looks for a player which has the 1 total score and a talk score, and if that is true, it resets my talk score and it activates the spell triggering thing with this torch. The left click detection is a little bit more complicated, and it doesn't actually detect if I left click, but if when the villager gets hurt, that is a problem, and that's why the left clicking will be optional. An advantage of left clicking is that you see when you hit because of the particles, but a disadvantage is that, let's teleport the villager to me. I'm just casting now because the villager gets damaged. And yeah, it tests with, I need to find the command, it should be somewhere here, maybe, I don't really know. With this command it detects if the villager currently has a hurt time of 1s, and that is only true when he just got hit. Then it's basically the same again as with right clicking, and it detects if the spell villager has a score, and then it activates the spell mechanic with this torch. Also, both of these things get resetted with cloning the command block down. I know now that it would be easier to just use a success count block data command, but I didn't know that when I created this, and cloning a untriggered command block down does the same thing as resetting the command block. Before we can continue with the third and final part of the spell mechanic, we first have to take a look at the spellbook. The spellbook is a pretty complicated book that I didn't write by hand because the trace is too complicated for me. So I used a generator, and I will link it in the description. So you can just click on any of these spells and they will get selected. They always also give a small information about what they do. Open locked doors for Alohomora. If I click on them, a message appears in the chat, but it will be disabled in the final version of the map. It's just there at the moment to show that something happened, and it sets my selected spell score, which is visible here. So it's 12 now, but it's 1 again now. So, okay, and that was actually all the stuff that's in the book, because it doesn't really do more than just set the selected spell score. Now on to the third part of the redstone. Now that we understand the selected spell mechanic, we can take a look at this. So this command block just activates something back here, these last few spells, so it doesn't really matter, but we will take a look at this row now because it's the first spell. The first thing it does is it checks if the player that just used a spell has a selected spell score of 1. If that is true, it activates this, which displays particles for everybody. Like this, some spells have different particles, but most use these purple particles. Then it also plays a sound. You probably won't hear it. And the last thing it does is... no, not the last thing. It also does this server message, which doesn't fit in the chat, but if I take a command block, redstone block, you can see it here. It writes used Alohomora, and the name of the player who just used the spell. I also created this using a generator, and I will link it too. And the last part of this spell triggering thing is this, which does the spell itself. It executes at the person who just used the spell. If there's an iron block below this person, it will summon an armor stand with a custom name, a door, invisible 1. So this is the iron block. Locking down is a little bit more useful. Well, okay, this is not supposed to happen, but it should actually just spawn a new one. Here you can see I had strength particles from my sword, but the villager should actually be invulnerable, so I don't know why I managed to kill him. But yeah, so you can see it's on the armor stand. The armor stand did something, and that opens the door. But the door was already open, so it didn't work. So yeah. The Alohomora spell itself, I mean the armor stand thing, is not actually down here, it is somewhere else, or maybe it is down here. So now, last but not least, the final part of the Alohomora spell is a scoreboard that counts what the armor stand we summoned does. It slowly counts up, and if the number reaches 4, it sets a iron block, and if it is and it gets killed, and if it's below 4, it sets a redstone block. And yeah. So thanks for watching. See you in the next episode, hopefully, of Harry Potter map making explanations. See ya.